Loading. The wheel spinning. We're live and on YouTube.
All right, great. Welcome to the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District Finance Auditing Committee of Thursday, November 17th, 2022. It is 10:36 a.m. and I'd like to call to order this meeting. And before we begin, please note the meeting is live streamed on YouTube and recorded. Members of the public are encouraged to watch or listen to the meeting online or by dialing into 415-569-6446 for the audio of this meeting. If you would like to provide public comment at today's meeting and you have not done so already, please call 415-569-6446 and let the facilitator know what items you would like to speak on today. Madam Secretary, could you please call the roll?
Thank you. We're going to start with Director Cochran.
Here.
Director Giudice. Director Giudice hasn't returned yet. Director Grosboll is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Maston. Oh, Director Giudice is back.
Here, sorry.
Thank you. Director Maston. Director Maston has not returned. I'll come back. Vice Chair Parr.
Present.
Chair Rabbit.
Here.
And President Theriault.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum. Also on the line, we have Directors Garbarino, Hill, Rodoni, and Snyder. So you are just a committee a whole, and Director Thier, thank you. And you are a committee a whole. Director Maston has not returned yet. Director Maston? Okay, we'll come back. I'll confirm staff. Dennis Mulligan?
Here.
Thank you. Joe Wire is not here. Eva Bauer-Furbish?
Present.
Thank you. Kim Manolius?
I'm here.
Dave Rivera?
Good morning, President.
Thank you. Mona Babauta?
Present.
Jim Swindler is not here. Kelly Hopper?
Present.
Thank you. And as I mentioned earlier, we also have Alice King on the line for our presentations, Jennifer Minucci and Ahmad Agarabeg. So I'll turn it back over to you.
And Director Maston is here.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Director Maston.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. I want to remind everyone to mute their microphones until after the staff's presentations. Remember to unmute when we open it up for directors' discussion. If we have directors joining us by phone, please use your mute button or *6 to unmute yourself. And after staff's presentation, I will be asking for any questions or comments on the item. Click on the raised hand function on your device if you would have a question, or press *9 if you're joining by phone. And if there are any questions, the secretary or I will call on you accordingly. And if we missed your raised hand, please, by all means, speak up. After our discussion, we'll ask for any public comment before moving on, and please follow along by referring to the page numbers located on the bottom right-hand corner of your meeting packet. And with that, Madam Secretary, could you please introduce the first item?
Thank you, Chair Rabbit. Item number 3 is the ratification of previous actions by the Auditor Controller. And the packet of commitments, ratification, investments before you begins on page 5. Wale is here with us today to go over PFM's investment report for October 2022, and that begins on page 9. Wale, I'm going to turn things back over to you, and I'm going to start your presentation so that you can walk us through it.
Thank you, Amaret. My camera's on, but for some reason it's not showing anything, so we'll just have to continue. But good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone again. And we'll start with the October report in regards to the investment account with PFM. If we go to page 10 and we look at what has happened with yields month over month, we've been saying this for quite some time now. Yields again did rise in the month of October, with the biggest increases happening again on the shorter end of the curve, mainly because that's the part of the yield curve that is the most sensitive to the Fed continuing to raise rates. We did get a rate hike at their last meeting of 75 basis points, and we're also expecting another rate hike at the next meeting in December. Now, the question, what happens at the December meeting, is whether or not that will be 75 basis points, possibly 50, or possibly even 25, as the Fed has signaled that, at some point they will have to slow down the pace at which they're raising rates, mainly because those 75 basis point rate hikes were done, in essence, to sort of catch up since they were behind the curve. If you look at the 2-year yield at the end of October, we're at 4.49%, which is a very drastic increase to where we were about 12 months ago. We move on to page 11, and page 11 takes a look at the recession possibility. So as we have an inverted yield curve, with a inversion that's getting pretty deep now, we're also starting to get signals of a possible recession that could be looming down the future. How intense that recession is or how long that could last, no one knows just yet. The good thing is, after 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP in 2021 and 2022, we did get a Q3 2022 GDP number that was positive. So that is, a good thing to see, that we do have a positive GDP print that did come out for the third quarter of 2022. We move on to the next slide and we look at core inflation. Core inflation, again, very sticky, not coming down at the pace at which the Fed would like. Again, the Fed likes a long-term inflation reading of somewhere around 2%. The good thing is that we are off the peaks, and the last CPI reading that we did get last month was a lot cooler than expected, which did help bring down yields and also cause the equity markets to rally last week. So we'll see. Again, the Fed has mentioned that they're going to be data dependent. One cool CPI reading does not necessarily make a trend to say that inflation is coming down, because this is the second one that we've had. And the last time that we got a cooler inflation reading, things did spike up again. So, if we start to see consecutive months of lower than expected inflation, that could lead the Fed to get to a point to either pause their rate hikes or to eventually stop at some point. Go down to page 14. Page 14 does give us a look at some of the leading indicators that are showing a slowdown in the overall economy. So if we look at this index, and if you look at the definition, the index basically takes a look at leading indicators and how they're moving month over month. And as we can see, we're starting to see some very decent decreases in these readings. And it says that, if as seen over the past 7 months, this leads us to believe that the economy is starting to slow down. So we're starting to see layoffs in certain sectors of the market, pretty substantial ones, which is giving us a signal that we could start to see some increases in the unemployment readings, which right now is at about 3.7%. As these layoffs start to hit the market, and we could see a possible uptick in unemployment. We move on to the next page, on page 15. These are our Fed funds rate projections. And if you go back to about December and March, we can see that those expectations have had to increase, again, mainly due to the fact that inflation has been a lot more stickier than expected. The Fed said that they could get to as high as 4.6%. There are some members on the committee that say they might get to as high as 5%. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, the long-term rate of the Fed funds rate, if you look at that box after that dotted line to your right, somewhere around that 2.9% rate is where the Fed would eventually like to get to. So, we'll see if inflation starts to abate. And if it does, we will start to see the Fed start to cut rates, which will help the market value of current securities. Now, when we look at the portfolio activity in page 16, one of the things that I will point out is that, the rising rate interest environment has presented some really, really good opportunities for us to add yield to the portfolio. The camp assets, which are liquid and, as good as cash, those are yielding well above 3%. And if you look at the purchases that were made in the portfolio for the month, very, very strong, healthy yields, with most yielding well above 4.5%. So the income in the portfolio is continuing to grow stronger. And as we're able to hold these securities longer through full market cycles and through interest rate cycles, we're expecting the yield to continue to be very, very healthy in the portfolio. And if we look at the page 18, which gives us a breakdown of the portfolio, and if you look at the bottom right and you look at the total yield in the portfolio with including Leif and Camp, we have now crossed the 2% threshold. So the overall operating reserve portfolio is now generating well above 2%. Well, I wouldn't say well above, but about 2% in yield. And we're expecting that number to continue to climb as we're adding very, very healthy yielding securities to the portfolio. That is it for me. Any questions so far?
I will look to my colleagues to see if there's any questions for Wale. Not seeing any hands raised. Just want to say thank you again. It does seem like every there are lots of layoffs going on right now. I'm not sure if that's a seasonal thing, trying to get it done before the Christmas season, so they don't look too much like Grinch. But it's also just disheartening to kind of see the numbers that are out there and what that portends going forward. So thank you for the work and the report today, Wale. I do have a hand raised by Director Hill. Go ahead, Director Hill.
Just a quick, it's just my observation, the asset-backed securities are really heavily in the auto world. And just curious a little bit, why is that? Especially considering the future has been fairly unclear as to where the automobile industry is going as they electrify.
Yeah, most of the asset-backed securities in the portfolio are either going to be in autos or in like credit cards. But the assets that we do purchase in the portfolio are going to be portfolios of creditors that have high credit ratings and low default risk. So most of the financial companies that are we're purchasing asset-backed securities are going to be in that Capital One. Some of the lenders that are lending assets that are backed by asset securities. So even though there is, cause for concern with recessions, but when you look at the portfolio of creditors that are in those asset-backed securities, lots of those creditors have very, very, low default risk, and the credit rating of that overall portfolio that we're purchasing is going to be of high credit quality of A or better.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Once again, any other questions for Wale? That does conclude the discussion on this item. Before we take our vote, Madam Secretary, is anyone from the public wishing to speak on item 3?
We have no speakers on this item.
All right, with that, can I get a motion to approve or to accept item 3?
Also move, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. And a second by?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second there. Madam Secretary, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. We're voting on item number 3 with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grothball is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier. I think Director Thier is there, but it may have stepped away. Director Thier. Okay, moving on to Second Vice President Hill,
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran,
Yes.
and President Terrio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 10 ayes.
Great, thank you. That motion passes. We have no actions under item 4 or 5. So continuing on with the agenda, we'll move on to item number 6, which is to receive the independent auditor's annual comprehensive financial report for the year ending June 30th, 2022, as submitted by Eide Bailey. The staff report begins on page 25, and committee members should have also received the audit report referenced as an attachment to the staff report. Ahmad Girabe of Eide Bailey will present this report. Ahmad, thanks for joining us this morning, and please go ahead and give us your report.
Thank you, Director. Good morning. We are the independent auditors of the district. The scope of the audit is to ensure that the financial statements are fairly stated. It is basically an affirmation of the financial information that was previously presented to you by management. We come in after the fact. The way that we do the audit, we actually split it into 3 phases, an interim phase, a confirmation phase, and a final phase or a reporting phase. In the interim phase, we take a look at the state and federal compliance. So you receive federal funding there. So it is a requirement that you undergo what they call a single audit. We also take a look at the internal controls over there at the district. We look at the manner that you process receipts, the manner that you process disbursements, and the manner that you process payroll. And then after year end, we wait for management to close the books, in which we begin the confirmation process. We confirm material numbers that are reported on your financial statements. We confirm your cash and investments. We confirm your state and federal funding, various amounts that are reported on the financial statements. And again, our focus is material amounts that are reported on the financial statements. The very last phase, which is the reporting phase, at that time we work with management to ensure that these statements adhere to accounting standards. They call them Government Accounting Standards Board or GASBs, including implementation of any new accounting standards. This year, actually, the district did implement the new standard related to the leases. And then finally, we are to report to you the results of our audit. And again, we are the independent auditors of the district, and we maintained our independence throughout the audit. I am pleased to let you know that the district received a clean opinion on the financial statements. We had no adjustments to the financial statements, and we encountered no difficulties in the performance of the audit. In fact, management was very helpful in assisting us and providing us with the necessary documentation, including connecting us with third parties so that we can confirm the amounts that were reported on the financial statements. We issued a clean opinion on these financial statements. And again, it's an affirmation of the financial information that was previously presented to you. And with that, I will be more than happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll look to my colleagues. Are there any questions of Ahmad on the comprehensive financial report or the CAFR? Not seeing any from my colleagues and Madam Secretary. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this item?
We have no speakers on this item, but actually before we move on, I'd like to introduce Cody. Cody Smith would like to say a few words before we take our vote. Cody, hey.
Yes, hi. Thanks, Amrit. Director Rabbit and members of the board, I just want to say, usually we'd have the accounting team come into the board and we give them a nice applaud. So I just want to first, again, just recognize their work. They are amazing team. So I just want to say for the record, Vicky, Leo, Patrick, John, Jeanette, Jennifer, and Ferdinand, it seems like a once in a, point in time report, but it takes a year's worth of effort. And they're definitely working their butts off to get this out the door. So I just want to applaud them and give them a shout out. They do a phenomenal job. And also just, with other departments, the budget team, the planning team, we can't do without them. So it definitely is a team effort and just want to recognize their efforts again. They do a great job. So thank you for the opportunity.
No, Cody, thank you for reminding us to, I know that there's usually budget season and audit season in the accounting world for organizations such as ours. And then they'll throw in that on top of that, the last 2 years were so many unknowns and trying to figure out a path forward and everything else. So wonderful work. Thank you all very, very, very much. It is always wonderful to get a clean opinion and a clean audit coming forward. So do want to recognize that. Do look forward to perhaps in March, getting back together and having those opportunities to give that round of applause in person.
Mr. Chair, can we applaud provisionally?
Sure.
Thank you very much. And we would love, the team obviously would love to get together. We love lunches. So if you guys have a luncheon, don't forget accounting. We would love to come over and we're happy to come to someone's house if you want to barbecue. We also love that as well. So we're great opportunists for a free lunch. So
there you go.
So thank you guys.
Numbers
Thank you
make you
very
hungry.
much.
No, thank you. And great job.
Thank you.
I will turn it back to our secretary to see if there's anyone from the public who has had any comment on this before we go ahead and take a motion.
We have no speakers on this item.
All right. With that said, can I have a motion to on item 6 to receive the independent auditor's annual comprehensive financial report for the year ending June 30th, 2022?
So moved.
I'll second.
And I'm assuming that our wonderful secretary got the first and second appropriate there. And with that, can we have a roll call?
Thank you. We're voting on item number 6 with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grossbull is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 11 ayes.
11 ayes, and that passes. So thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 7, which is to receive the annual report of the OPEB Retirement Investment Trust Board. The staff report begins on page 27, and Director of Fiscal Resources, Alice Ng, will present this report. Alice, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. The item before you is the annual report from the OPEB Trust to the District Board. Those of you who are on the OPEB Trust Board, this may look familiar to you since you just reviewed it at the Trust Board meeting last month. But for those who are listening in and not familiar with the trust, I will take a few minutes now to go over it. Back in 2007, the district established the OPEB Trust to fund retiree health and other post-employment benefits. The district also created a separate board, the OPEB Trust Board, and delegated its oversight of the trust investments to it. As required by the Trust Board Charter, the Trust Board is required to review, at least on an annual basis, these 3 things. 1 is the investment policy, 2 is the performance of the service providers, and 3, its charter. The Trust Board completed its review at the recent October meeting and is now reporting back to the District Board. So on the first item, the investment policy, at the last meeting, as recommended by the investment advisor, the Trust Board approved an amendment to the investment policy to permit investments in pooled vehicles domiciled outside the U.S. Included on page 31 of your deck is the compliance report that certifies that the investment portfolio is in full compliance with the investment policy and the trust agreement. In terms of the service providers, there are mainly 2. So one is the investment advisor, which is PFM Asset Management. Now, this is the multi-class group, so different from the fixed income group, which you just heard earlier from Wale this morning. The other provider is US Bank, who is the trustee and the custodian. The Trust Board determined that the PFM's investment returns have been consistently good compared to the trust benchmarks and peers. They also concluded that both PFM and US Bank's costs were reasonable and that their customer service was very good. Last December, US Bank Asset Management, which is a subsidiary of US Bank, acquired PFM Asset Management. The district and the district council met with PFM and US Bank staff, as well as their legal counsels, and were satisfied that there were no conflicts of interest as a result of the acquisition. However, as guided by district council, the district executed amendments to PFM's professional services agreement and the OPEB Trust agreement to clarify both parties' fiduciary duties. Finally, the charter was reviewed by the Trust Board and no changes were recommended. Before I end my report, I want to call your attention to the chart on page 29. This chart shows the inflows and outflows from the trust. So you see the contributions, the payments out of the trust, and the investment returns. Both the district and the OPEB Trust make policy decisions that affect these areas. The district is responsible for the contributions and the benefits, while the Trust Board provides oversight of the investment returns. Now, in terms of the contributions, it is the district policy to minimally fund the actuarially determined contribution, or ADC, every year. But equally important, though, are the policies that the district makes with the support of its labor partners to help control retiree costs while still provide high-quality health care. A recent example of this is when the district transitioned to the CalPERS health plans in 2021. And lastly, the third area is the investment returns, and it is the OPEB Trust Board who tracks PFM's performance as the trust investment advisor to see that they consistently provide good investment returns. That concludes my report. I'm happy to any questions that anyone may have.
Great. Thank you very much, Alice. Thank you for all your work on the OPEB trust. And I'll look to my colleagues to see if there's any questions, comments, concerns. I am not seeing any hands raised. I will look to our secretary to see if there's anyone from the public who wants to speak on item number 7.
We do. We have one speaker. David Pilpel would like to speak under item number 7. David, are you there?
I am. You can hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Great. Okay. I believe last time today. So I may have missed it, and I certainly appreciate Alice's work on this and other things. But I'm not sure that I saw it in this report or elsewhere. Is the OPEB trust fully funded relative to anticipated future OPEB costs? I mean, I think that was the intent, but it wasn't disclosed in this particular report. I'm sure it's elsewhere, and I suspect I could probably get a quick answer on that. Separately, I have no comments later on the budget, since it's just it was a short month, and this is still the September report, and I may have some thoughts on better describing closed session matters, and can talk to Kim Manolius about that offline. So that's it for me for today. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Alice, anything to add on the funding of the trust?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we do discuss that at our OPEB Trust Board meetings, but to answer your question, at the end of 6/30/21, the trust is about 66.5% funded, which is actually quite good compared that, being that it's only been in place 15 years. And last year, prior to the recent market conditions, we were a little bit over 70% funded the previous year. And despite the market conditions, we're still over 100 million. So we're pleased to see that.
Great. Thank you for providing that information. Appreciate it. With that, if there's no more questions on item 7 of the OPEB trust, I'll look to my colleagues to see if we get a motion to approve.
So
I'll
moved.
move, Mr. Chairman.
Great. And I see that we had a second there as well. So this is to receive the annual report of the OPEB Retirement Investment Trust Board. And Madam Secretary, with that, can we have a roll call, please?
Thank you. We are voting on item number 7 with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grosboll is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 11 ayes.
11 ayes. Motion passes. Next on the agenda is item number 8. Status report on the fiscal year 22-23 budget. Staff report begins on page 33, and the Director of Budget and Electronic Revenue, Jennifer Minucci, will be presenting this item. Jennifer, go ahead.
Good morning, Director Rabbit and members of the Finance Committee. I'm here to present the monthly budget status report on the fiscal year 22-23 budget. As was stated, due to the timing of the monthly close, the report before you is the same as last month that closes September. Accounting did close October last night, so I got a sneak peek. So you'll be getting an update next month in October. But at first glance, bus remained close to its current trend at about 40% pre-COVID recovery. Toll traffic also continues to remain relatively flat, but kind of dipping down as we go into the winter months. We're still around mid 80s of pre-COVID. But as the GM had reported earlier at the transportation meeting, our AM commute continues to be well below pre-COVID levels. And ferry is also trending down in the low 50s, high 40% of pre-COVID in both ridership and revenue. So we will report out that next month as it's closed. And as the general manager has reported previously, overall, we continue to be well below pre-COVID levels, but we'll be watching that in this monthly report. happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. And look to my colleagues. Any questions? I am not seeing any. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on item number 8?
We have no speakers on this item.
All right, with that, we'll continue then on to item number 9 on the agenda, which is closed session. And if there are no objections, I'd like to accommodate the public and take item 10, which is public comment first, so the public does not have to wait for us to finish the closed session. Are there any objections to taking public comment now instead of after we return from closed session? I am not seeing any. Thank you for that. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public wishing to address the committee under item 10, public comment?
We have no more speakers today for this committee.
All right. So want to thank everyone for their patience. Thank you for putting up with my occasional cough. We will be placing the public on hold for the duration of the closed session item. We'll return after closed session to adjourn the meeting. Attorney Kim Manolius, will you take us into closed session? Too much cold medicine. Thanks.
Of course, Chair Rabbit. At this time, the committee will go into closed session for a conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Section 5496.9A with regard to 2 matters listed on the agenda, the Lionel Hankins Jr. matter and the Danny Hollins matter as listed on the agenda.
All right, give me 1 second to stop the live stream and also